What's happening, world? I very rarely do this, but every so often, something just bugs me till I have to do something, say something. Talking about slavery. As an economic system, no different than any other economic system. And I like it. Makes a lot of sense. If you have very low skilled labor needs to be done, and you want to get it done as cheap as possible, slavery is the way to go. Much cheaper than having to pay a worker who wants to make a profit to then maybe start their own business, right? Or invest their money. If you can hire labor to work for just their necessities, makes sense. And it's an economic system that's been around for a very, 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 very long time. Still goes on today. Of course, you know, there's issues regarding slavery, no different than any other economic system. Maltreatment of workers, outright thievery was a big issue and was actually outlawed before the practice of slavery was outlawed. So that's my opinion on that. I heard a while back someone said, us African Americans, us black people, those in South America as well, Central America, Mexico, we are the offspring of the weak, the offspring of those that not only were captured or sold off, but were put in that situation and chose to bear children. And that's the thing that I've been thinking about tonight that blows my mind, you know. Either the Africans that were brought here were so used to being slaves that it was so commonplace that, you know, for them being a slave and bearing children was common practice, and they didn't see any problem with that, right? The other scenario is that they were forced to breed. And I've heard, you know, stories here and there. I would like to think that it did happen because, hell, if I owned slaves, I would definitely want them to breed to make more slaves. I mean, it only makes sense, especially if you're telling me I can sell those slaves. I mean, it's no different than cattle or anything else. I would force them to breed no different than I force my dogs, my cattle, or my horses to breed. Makes sense to me, right? So regardless, either they were so complacent or familiar with slavery that they chose to bear children on their own, or they're so weak and for lack of a better word, complacent to be forced into breeding. This comes about because I'm looking at this word called sacrifice. Sacrifice is one of the things that I preach when it comes to financial matters and monetary discipline, is that sacrifice, giving up something in exchange for something in the future. And it's really hard for me to imagine, the idea of being okay, laying down with being a slave, with being unfree. Even when you had the revolts and you had stories of slaves capturing ships and overthrowing the crew, and you hear stories of Kunta Kinte had his foot cut off because he tried to run away so many times, and you have African slaves that tried to leave the plantation and were caught afterwards. I mean, you would think that with all this stuff going on, it seems like sex would be very far from your mind. Then again, I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Maybe I would do the same thing. I would like to think. I'll say I won't. I won't do the same thing. How about that? I refuse. There's no way. in that situation, why bring another life into that? It makes no sense to me. So being that I'm the offspring of that, whether it be rape, whether it be forced breeding, whether it be just complacency with the situation, it's not something I'm happy with. However, I'm here, we're here, and we have to deal with it. My dad told me a long time ago that there was a lot of inbreeding, which I can believe, especially if you have forced breeding. Inbreeding sounds like a very possible scenario. Those are my thoughts, my feelings on the subject. Had it on my mind for a long time. Wanted to put it out there. Holla.